I actually, I'm based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, just west of Charlotte. And I'm ready to move even further west because the traffic keeps following me. It's a nightmare today with traffic on both ways that I went. So, but I invest primarily in the Southeast. Christy and I actually had a conversation about this, but primarily I invest in the Southeast, both Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, but I've done deals in Utah, Arizona, Texas, where else? Tennessee, you name it. I've probably done some sort of deals. And I've done different things. I love the land. I keep coming back to land because it's kind of my bread and butter in my company. So I can do land. It's easier to do remotely. I don't have to, worry about floor joists rotting and bad roofs or any of that. And you can't really break in and steal the copper. I don't even care if you go out there and steal a, 5-gallon bucket of dirt. It's not going to affect me. So that's something to think about. I do have a thing. If you've got a business that's going now, or you're thinking about doing a business, or you have questions, I do have a website, startinvestingwithmike.com. Basically what that can give you is if you want to talk to me or my team, it's usually me and my partner that gets on it, unless I'm busy or he's busy, then it's just one or the other, but he is well-versed as I am. But we'll get on and you may say, well, what kind of direction? We'll kind of give you a little brief roadmap of where you could go with your business and that sort of thing. You just do that because, we want everybody to be successful. This is the best thing about this business is watching other people grow in it. And, people always are asking me, why are you doing that? You're doing 14,000 things. Why are you teaching too? Because this is the part I had. This is the part I've got a passion for. So that's why I do this teaching. I could do other things. I'm expanding my business now. We're doing some development. We're doing some commercial stuff. We're doing some short-term rental stuff. It's occupying a lot of time, but this is where I get the most fun out of it. This does not work. So again, startinvestingmike.com if you're interested. Stop this 1 second. One other person, and I'm very informal with my teaching, so to speak. If you've got a question, let me know. Put it in the comments or whatever. We'll get to any questions that you may have, that sort of thing. I'm big on that. So we're going to get going right now. You see here. All right. So last week, we kind of started over and went over some stuff and started talking about why we invest in land. It's less competition than houses. People ask me all the time, so, well, I've mailed letters and maybe they've gotten a letter from somebody else too. It's less competition. Not saying there's no competition, depends on where you go. I love the Florida market. There's a lot of competition there, but if you do it right, you still can be successful, and so can your competition. If you would mail a house letter, and I did this, it's not scientific, but I own obviously vacant land. I own a couple of houses, a couple of them are free and clear. I get probably 10 to 1 the amount of letters on any house that I got. The wholesaler wants to buy it for pennies on a dollar versus any land that I've got. So there is truly less people doing that. And again, we talk about the roof, foundation, plumbing, don't have tenants to worry about most of the time. And usually it's the cheapest type of real estate with some of the highest profit margins on some of them. I had one student, literally my record student made right at $198,000, something like that on one deal. And he was, and it was like his third deal, and that's not common, but it was a really huge hit for him. He was getting ready to retire from the military anyway. So it really set him up for what he wanted to do. So it was perfect. Again, you can't steal it. Mailer returns are good. What else is profitable? You can get 70% plus margins on some of it. Doesn't require a lot of maintaining, passive income, part-time, full-time. You can do it remotely. In the summer, I spend a lot of time at the beach, and I just work from down there. You can work anywhere. Why do people let land go at discounted prices? We talked about, there's not as much emotion involved. They don't have the emotion that others have. And, people's life change. And I had this conversation with somebody the other day. They were like, I just don't get how you get properties like that. So you just got to ask. You mail them a letter, you got to ask. As I always told, if you don't ask, you don't know. So that's one of the things. There's different types of land. You got your typical building lots. You've got, areas of growth or passive growth. Growth is what I like to look at. For example, I'll use where I'm at, Charlotte, North Carolina, is in Mecklenburg County. You can circle probably 2 counties out all the way around, and that's passive growth. They're already in the surrounding counties, so you got to go a little bit further out. Same thing with Fulton County in Georgia. You can really put that out because a lot of people don't mind coming into Georgia. Or coming into Atlanta. They may not necessarily want to live in Atlanta itself. May work there, or want a place like at Lake Lanier or something like that. So it's passive growth and things like that. When you think of larger parcels of property, people, is it farmland? It could be farmland. Could be somebody just wants to camp on it or ride ATVs. That's a big thing, or hunt on it. So you have to think about that. When you think about farmland, think outside the box. One of the biggest things right now, as we all know, is solar energy and things like that. Solar farms are becoming really big throughout the country. So think about that if you're dealing with any large parcels and think this could be that. It could be regular farmland, maybe trees that you got to grow and redevelop. The development thing, residential and commercial, I'm literally doing both right now. And as I go through that process, I'll be glad to keep you guys up to date. But we're literally looking at a self-storage thing. We're looking at some developing some townhomes, but it all started with the land. That's the foundation. Couldn't do any of this without the land. So that's why I say, if you build a good foundation with land, you can take it and do whatever you want, anywhere you want. Where to invest? Obviously in growing areas, but areas that interest you. You notice I said that I invest in the Southeast. Well, I know that area interests me. I love Florida. I love Georgia. I love South Carolina. I have a vacation home in South Carolina. So I love that area. Have I done some deals in Arizona? I got a really good friend of mine that's a big investor out there. It does land, and he does a lot out there. My idea of a good time is not a 40-acre parcel of sand in the middle of a desert that I've got to hike probably 2 miles from the main road to even get to. But there's people that like that. They live off the grid, want a place just to get away. But that's not my cup of tea. I don't typically invest in those areas because I want it to be something I like. Also, one thing, and I don't really even have it up here, but one thing to keep in mind when you're investing, everybody says, well, you got to look at the data and all that. We do look at all the data. One extra thing I encourage you to always do is go to that county's GIS site or parcel lookup site to make sure it's user friendly, because especially starting out. And even now, I hate going in counties if it's very different, if it's not user friendly. A lot of times I'll even avoid them. But I want a county that I can, look at properties, evaluate them and things like that pretty quickly. We talk about or growing areas, Zillow.com. That's a great area to look at different areas to grow. Where do you find the internet? Other informations about groups as REIAs, datausa.io is another thing that we do. You look at the economics of it. I'm getting ahead of myself. So here we are. And you can pull some test mailers and things like that. We talked about creating your business, what you need. Find out if you're detail oriented or less detail oriented. If you're really detail oriented, you may want to have your business set up before you start. If not, you may want to take off and run. You got to have an LLC. You don't have to, but I encourage you to do that. And typically it's not that expensive. You can create it yourself through the Secretary of State, or you can go through an attorney or online service. Some sort of business, street address, UPS store, United States Post Office that allows you to do a street address, virtual mailbox, those sort of things, just so you have a mailing address. And then you got building a communication system. These folks have to be able to talk with you at some way, somehow. One of the best ways is an answering service. That's probably the top way, but you don't have to have that. And I encourage somebody, if you're starting your business out, don't go that route. I'd rather you take that money and spend on mailers than that. You can have something as small as a Google Voice number, additional cell phone, call rail. There's all kinds of platforms out there, Grasshopper, whatever, just to have a number and a voicemail, the proper voicemail set up so you can, when you receive those calls, they'll leave you what information you need, and you can call them back, or you don't have to call them back. And you can also take the buyer calls if you want to. Just something to think about. Also, email. You want some sort of email. Websites. You don't have to be big on websites right yet. If you're starting off, I've had them. I've took them down. I have them. Take them down. One of mine right now is Delta Land Deals. .net, and it just shows you our properties. Matter of fact, let me do something here and I can show you that. So here's our website. This is how we can get people to get on our buyers list and put their name and email address. But it just goes down, shows some properties we have for sale, that sort of thing. See all properties. Shows additional properties. Frequently asked questions about us, that sort of thing. Just again, that's not a souped up crazy website, but it's something you don't even have to have initially. Do I sell many properties off on my direct website? No, I don't. To be honest with you, that's not where people buy their properties. It's other sites. So with that said, that's the stuff we went over last week. Does anybody have any questions on any of that stuff? Or last month? I'm sorry. Still on last week. If not, we'll jump into the next area. That's obtaining a mailing list. And I don't know how many of you guys saw my post earlier, and I talked about it earlier here. If somebody else may have jumped on, a couple others may have jumped on since then. I am going to share something with you here in a little bit to show you some things. But obtaining a mailing list, where do I get this mailing list? I've decided I'm going to take, any county, any state, USA, and that's what I'm going to mail. Well, I got to figure out how to do it. There's a couple different ways you can do it. You can get it from the county itself. Just ask, you want a vacant land list with, the owner contact or owner mailing information on it. Agent Pro 247. That's a paid site. You can do it, a monthly subscription to it, or you can do a la carte. And basically the leads are about 5 or 6 cents a piece, depending on the a la carte system you pick. That's a way to do it. I used to use that a little bit. I don't really use it now. We have a different source, but it's a good source also if you're testing a county, because when you first go into a county, you don't know if it's going to be a great county or not. So you may or may not want the entire list. You may want to start an Agent Pro, pull out 1,000 names, mail it, and see what your response is. You can still do that with the county too. You just don't mail the whole list. Title companies can also be a great source for lists. Let them know you're an investor. Let them know that you're looking for land lists in particular counties, and ask for the same information. but a lot of times they won't charge you for that data. And, you tell them you're looking to build a long lasting working relationship with them on different deals so they can get their money on the back end when you flip properties. Other sources, there's ProLogic. There's a couple different ones out there. HBN Data, that's who we use. It's a kind of a concierge service type thing. When you start really get into mailing heavily, they're a good source also. So that's things to think about as far as where you obtain that list. So once you get that list, what am I going to do next? I mean, I got a list. What do I do next? Well, you got to clean it. How you clean it? Do you want to clean it yourself? Have someone else to clean it? You can do that. Friend, relative, virtual assistant. Usually this is somebody that knows how to use Excel and is very well versed in that. And like I said, that may be a virtual assistant or VA, sometimes they're called. I have a couple virtual assistants that work for me. They can clean lists. They may, and they may charge you a per job thing or an hourly rate. If you're asking them to clean lists, I usually just ask for how much you're going to charge me to clean this list. And it shouldn't be much. I'm talking like 25 bucks, 35 bucks, depending on what they're doing. And sometimes cheaper than that. Some of the key things that you want them to do is you want to separate businesses from individuals and trusts. I typically, as a general rule, not all the time, I don't mail businesses because what I've found is individuals and trusts, families that have set up trust things with property in it, those seem to be the most willing or most willing to sell to me. Businesses, sometimes you can do it, especially if it's small business, but I at least start out with those. If it's a really, really good county, I may go back and catch the individuals. You want to also separate your list out of state versus in-state owners. And I always start mailing my out of state first, simply because they're more motivated usually, because if they got to come to the property, if they have to keep it clean, whatever, they're not as taxed because they don't live near it. And you can remove some. Now, what about in-state owners? Well, I would mail anybody that's in-state to that property with one exception, and one exception only. I don't want the property zip code to be the same as the owner's mailing zip code. And this is for a couple reasons. Number one, that's a convenient property for the owner. Number two, what I don't want to happen is I get that property under contract and it happens to actually be across the road or beside my owner of the property. Maybe he has his house on a piece of parcel and then he's got other parcels around, and he comes out and he sees strange people walking his property or something. It can create a nightmare. So I just separate those. If you live in a different area in the county, a different zip code, I'll pick you up, or anywhere else in the state for that matter. And you can sort by zip codes when you do your list. That's the easiest way to do. You can box them out and move them out as you want to. You can also value sort if you want to. If you're looking at certain price ranges, I tell people I generally look at properties that have a market value of somewhere between 10,000 and 200,000. Properties above 200,000, your buyer pool shrinks. So I don't want you to you want to get in, the biggest bang for your buck group. So that's usually the group that I look for in that. Next thing is, so I got a list. I got a list. Now what? Why am I mailing? Mail house versus yourself doing it. Why am I mailing? I'm gonna mail a neutral letter. What I mean by neutral letter is, and we can actually show one of those. Pull that up. Let me pull up. Make sure you get the latest one that we have here. I'm going to show you kind of a You're probably going to look at it and say, this looks crazy looking. I'm going to show you a neutral layer without the website. Bring this up. All right. Down for 1 second. Okay. This is the layer that goes out. And you're probably looking at it and you're saying, what in the world are all those squiggly things? What this is, you know, the next thing says, do I want a mail house to do it? Or do I want to fold up things, stuff envelopes, lick envelopes, put stamp on it, write their names out on the envelopes? You can do that if you want to. You're still going to have to merge those names in. Honestly, I encourage everybody to just send it to a mail house. It saves you a lot of time. There's a couple different ways. If you go first class, it's about 73 cents a layer, 74 cents. If you go bulk rate, it's about 54 cents. The biggest difference is, number one, you don't get your return layers on bulk rate, and it takes about 3 weeks to get to them. That's the two key things. Usually I tell students, if you can do it, mail first class your first list, and then you can start bulk rating them, because you can start forecasting when you need to send mailers out after the first couple mailers. But basically, this one has a letter number. Some of them have a letter number. Basically means that, hey, it's going to auto populate 1 through 100, 200, 500,000, however many you got. But it's got their information, property name. Now mine or this version has my company letterhead on it. From talking to people, I'm part of a mastermind that we talk about what's working, what's not working. And what I found is actually taking that off is better. So you get in here, dear first name, you've got that. I'm writing you because public records show you are owner of real property in whatever county, whatever state. I'm very interested in purchasing this property, any others you may own. You want to say any others they may own, because they may not want to sell that one, but they may have a lot of other ones. You tell them public records, because sometimes people get a little antsy and want to know, well, how'd you get my information? That's public record. Then I want to tell them a little bit about myself. You know, we're a family-owned real estate business based just outside of Charlotte, specialize in helping. I use the help word even when I'm talking to them and things like that. It's a psychological thing. It doesn't mean, you know, I'm not specializing in stealing your land from you. I'm trying to help you out of a situation. You've got a piece of property and you want out of it. Let me help you get out of it with the best possible scenario that works not only for you, but my company as well. They no longer need or want. We have a unique process that makes selling your property painless and hassle-free. With years of experience, we pride ourselves on creating a winning solution for you and the seller. We want it to be a winning solution for everyone. I'm going to show you that here in a little bit. If you're considering selling your property, actively, we're looking and buying in that area. Offer you a fast, trouble-free close. It's fair price. Of course, I go ahead and tell them I'm going to pay their closing fees. We have many highly satisfied customers. Rather have cash than the burden of ownership. You're tempting them with the cash. Many of these customers have plans for the property initially. Things change, people's plans change, folks pass away, financial crisis, those sort of things require or cause people to lose what they've got and everything. What we got here? So I invite you to call the office directly. Now that office number may be an answering service, or it may be, in my case, I don't even use answering service right now, because I've got it where it goes directly to a voicemail. My VA looks at it first, then I get it. If we do not answer, it means that we're helping somebody on the other line. Please leave your name, phone number, your county your property is in, and the letter number. We'll call you back directly, or send down an offer for your property for review. What we don't want to do is say, we'll call you back in 24 hours, because if you get inundated, you may not be able to keep that up, and you don't want to tell them something that you can't do. So it's important just to say that, even if you don't even, if I have a parcel number, and people don't necessarily leave you all the information you need, but if I've got a parcel number, I can figure out the rest. What is it nice enough? It's got water and sewer, electric, all that on it. Absolutely. But I don't have to have it to make an initial offer. And then since I'm always available to help answer real estate questions, no obligation. And I've had some call me and say, look, I don't really want to sell this, but what could I do with it? And I don't mind telling them. And then obviously it has my name on it and my email address. And if they want to email me, that's how you get me. And if you're not ready to sell, tell them to keep the letter in case things may change later. But that's the neutral letter that goes out, and that's going to go out to anybody on your mail list that you've got is going to receive that letter, and that's how they're going to contact you. Now, if I had a website, I would just have another paragraph talking about you can go to the website, you can put your information in the website, and we'll send you an offer then. Basically, they can answer some questions on the property and send out an offer. Now, also, if you take the calls yourself, I do have those questions that you can ask. Key questions are, is it landlocked? Is there an HOA? What's the septic system? Does it have public sewer? Am I going to have a septic system? Water, do I need a well? Does it have public water? Is power nearby? Those sort of things. Is it inside the city limits, outside the city limits? Just questions like that. Questions so far? Anybody got any questions? And again, you can interrupt me. You can put it in chat. You can hit that raise hand button. Any of those things, it's just fine. So let's jump back here. Okay, we talked about mail house. We talked about why am I mailing? Talked about the letter. How large a mailer? Initial test mailer is how many mailers you want to make the test mailer. There's schools of thoughts on it, but here's my thought. I want it at a very, very, very minimal 750. I would rather you do 1,000, because what if there's, 10,000 land records in there? If you're doing 1,000, you're only getting 1% of that, or 10% of that. I'm sorry, getting 10% of that if there's a 10,000 letters and you're doing 1,000. But you want to try to get as big of a sampling as you can. If I only do 500, then I'm only doing, half of that, 5%. So I want a decent size. Mike, you mentioned a strategy where you can look at 2 counties out from primary. Does it matter what size land parcel owners that you're mailing to? Yes and no. And that's a really good question. To answer it bluntly, not really. But what I've discovered in doing this so much is I really want properties that's at least a 1/4 acre in most areas I do. However, you guys know they build houses on 1/5 of an acre, 1/10 of an acre, or whatever nowadays. So if you want that small, I usually do 2/10 of an acre and on up, because it gets rid of some of the junk properties for you. So you have at least a usable piece of property instead of some little sliver line. They had one that was just a drive. I was like, really? Why is the drive different? So I hope that helps answer that. Complete county mailer. If you finish up that, what is an average mailer? How do I know? I've mailed this list and I know that it's good. So where do I go now? What do I do? Do I mail the whole thing? Do I mail the other 9,000? Maybe not necessarily. You may want to do another 1,000 or 2,000, 3,000, however many you think you can handle. Probably, I always encourage folks. Most of my students are doing probably, once they get in an area, probably 2,000 mailers a month. And they're doing it usually twice a month, 1,000 the first part of the month, 1,000 the middle part of the month. That's on average. Now I got some students that are doing 3,000 and 5,000 letters a month. Huge amounts, more than I mail right now. But yeah, you've got those things. But do what you can handle. If you want to do multiple areas and multiple mailers, you can do that too. You may have 2 different counties that are hitting good. If you've got the bandwidth and the gumption to do it, then do it. Just kind of look at your time as you go to make sure you have the right amount of time in your schedule, that you still, you got your day job, you got your family. That's very important. Family always is first. And then you've got your business you're creating that's going to take some of your time as well. So we got that. Responding to seller leads. So, okay, I've got this letter out. I've got people calling. What in the world am I going to do now? What am I supposed to do now? What do I ask them? We kind of talked about that, the power, the water, sewer, is an HOA, is it landlocked, is it on a dirt road, is it on a paved road, those sort of things. And there's question guides out there that that you can also look at that has those things. If I have one readily available here. Way too many things open. Where prospect, it's internal. I don't see it on this. I'm not logged into my other thing, but basically it's just a list of usually there's about 10 questions or so with it. But you make it whatever you want. If you do have a answering service doing it, keep in mind you probably want to keep it, to the 10 or 12 questions, because that's what their time. You give a certain number of minutes. So you want those folks on there getting the questions and off. You don't want them making friends and sending Christmas cards to these people. What's your expected response rate from mailings? Really, really good question. Super question. In housing, if I got a 1% response rate back in the housing world, I jump for joy. For this, now if you just send 1,000 out, you may have a little bit of a lower response rate. It may be the 1 to 2 to 3%. But if you really dive into that county, you're really working that county. I think we average somewhere between 3 and 5%, to be honest. Some people will say, oh, you can get 8, 9, 10%. You can't. We've got somebody in our mastermind, they get 17% sometimes. Your percentage is going to be definitely higher than houses and that sort of real estate. But I'm more of a conservative when it comes to numbers. Initially on your test mailers, anywhere from 1 to 3%, hopefully if you're in a good area. But if you really get in that area and digging deep and there's some responses, usually about 3 to 5% is really good. So I'm glad that helped. So responding to seller, that's seller calls. What if you got that website and it's an online lead? Usually the websites have an automatic response. So example, if Mark sent me in his property for me to buy, and once he hits submit, it's going to automatically email me and automatically email him, thanking him for that submittal and telling him that I'll be back in contact. The email to me is say, hey, you got somebody's wanting to sell you land, you need to look at this. Or you can do manual responses if you have them emailing your email address. Occasionally, because I do put my email address on it, I'll have them email me directly. And that's fine. I don't mind that. Honestly, I love talking to sellers. And the biggest reason is I want in their head, I want to figure out, why are they selling this property? It's almost like a challenge to begin with. Do they really need to sell? Or are they just trying to, play a game of chess with me on what they can get out of it? That sort of thing. The question guide can be incorporated also on that online submission with the same question. So that's that aspect of it. One thing I wanted to do, and because our next area we're going to get into is going to be determining property values and things like that. And that's a segment that we really get deep in, because when I do that property values, I want to look at real examples. We're going to do real examples. We're going to go to the county website and pull and look at numbers. From there, we're going to go to Zillow and look at the numbers, see if we can find comps. What do we do if we don't have comps? Things like that. That's where I really want to get with that aspect of it. But what I want to do now is actually announce something that I was going to do something a little different. And what I want to do is, we just had a property close not too long ago. There was a unique property, wasn't a home run deal. I didn't make 15, 10, $20,000 on it. It was, quite frankly, I think we may have made less than $4,000 on it. But the story behind it is what is one of the things I wanted to show you. Let me pull that up. Check that out. So this deal is in it's in North Carolina. It's in Western North Carolina. And I kind of just want to walk you through the deal. We sent out a neutral letter. I showed you a neutral letter. These folks received that same neutral letter. So what do? We looked at the property, we determined what we thought it was worth, and then we sent out an offer. And I want to show you that deal. Pull that down. Okay, so this is the contract, and we're going to get into this in coming lessons and months. We'll definitely get a lot further in this, so don't sweat this. I just want to walk you through it. This particular company name that I use a couple different company names. It drives my accountant insane, but there's rhyme or reason to it. The seller, this was the seller. This is us as the buyer. This is back in February. We offered them $5,000 for their property. Could have been worth, we were thinking somewhere around 25,000, something like that, but we didn't really know. Just initial stuff. We just knew that 5,000, we should be able to make something on it. One thing that we did find out in talking to them, little backstory, is there was back taxes owed on this property, almost 5,000. They thought that it's closer to about 3,500, and they were going to get, a little bit of money. We gave them our highest and best, just because they were very, very sweet. She was trying to get things done, and it was the best option for them. So that's the property information. This is just some of the stuff where it's closed. Look at this right here. Here's the cool thing. So this contract went out in February. It's supposed to close by June 22nd, 2021. So that's 6 months. No, February. No, it's 4 months. I'm sorry. Some of them are 6 months. Some of them are 4 months. I generally say start with a 6-month contract. And I don't say, hey, Bobby, I'm going to buy your property, but I need 6 months to sign to try to, buy it. What I tell them is quite frankly, I just say, hey, look, I'm going to send you a contract out. You review it. It's in there, black and white. They can read it. And that's what, I want them to do. Read it and go from there. One thing that we do down here is automatically expired. This creates a sense of urgency. I sent out on February 22nd, gives them a few weeks to sign. If it's not signed by then it's dead. If you notice, we sign it. The guy in my company, Nathan, signs it before when we send it out, because we know it's going to die after so long. So then our buyer bought it. And this one's very unique. If you notice, the name is glazed up here. Patricia Kiger signed it. If it's not already complicated with back taxes, this person had passed away. They had inherited it. The names hadn't caught up on everything, but that's where we were with it. So that's the contract that went out to them for $5,000. let me see here. Pull my folder up again. So what did we do then? Our next thing we needed to do is we need to determine some of the stuff about this property. And what we do, one of the first things that we do is we literally get a due diligence report. And again, like I said, we'll go over this further on into the lessons, but I wanted to go ahead and share it with you. I had you here. All right, so this is a due diligence report I get from landmaster.us. They're a virtual assistant company that specializes in land. This thorough report cost me about $10, maybe 15 at best. Gives me all kinds of stuff, GPS coordinates, not only the parcel size, not only just the GPS coordinates to get to the property, but each corner of the property, the assessed value. The property was assessed at $27,000. Now you can't always lean on that, but that's what it was assessed at. And this is a good guide to get some of the questions answered. Obviously, you don't want to ask them every one of these. Delinquent taxes, we knew that. $248, 2014 to 2020. It's wooded. This property is supposedly buildable. Now, sometimes they get some things wrong on this, but they're about 9% correct. Comes down here. I'm gonna have a sewer system. Need to install sewer. Have water. Yes, it did have water, so I didn't have to worry about water. So that's what we got. We started gathering information because now I got to sell this property if I've got it under contract. So that's part of what we got. So after that aspect of it, we want to go to what we're going to do next. Let's see if I put it in here. I may not put it in here. So I started building an ad. Long story short, built the ad, put the ad together, put it out there. We had a buyer finally. Took a little bit longer to sell, but we had a buyer. I'll show you the buyer contract. So here's the buyer contract, August 9th. So it's not been that long ago. He's going to pay $9,995. This buyer actually ended up being a neighbor. Neighbor letters is something we'll talk about too. It's another form of advertising or marketing your property. He signed it. We're supposed to close it on August 30th. I get a call, and this neighbor, when he called about buying the property, he said, "Look, how'd you get that property?" I was, "What do you mean?" He says, "Man, we've been wanting that property." He says, "I don't mind giving you the $9,995 you want for it because I know it's worth more." It's worth probably somewhere between about 20,000. But we were trying to move it quick because we closed on this one earlier. We didn't wait till we had an end buyer like we could have. We went ahead and closed on it early. So we owned it and was paying taxes on it. But we were getting ready to close on it. Maybe we were getting ready to close. Yeah, because the HUDs were right there together. Long story short, we said, we'll do it. We'll make it work for you. But when we were closing on it beforehand, yeah, what happened is we got a call from our attorney. Hey, this property, they owe more than you've offered for the property. They owe like everything was going to be, I think it was going to be $5,300, $5,400, something like that. What are you going to do? I'm like, man, I'm like at the max amount, and I hate for these people not to get anything. So, and now I'm going to have to come out of pocket even more to get this. So we talked to the people. Folks really didn't know what to do. It was truly a burden for them, this house or this land. So what we agreed to do, talk to the attorney. She says, we got to stop the foreclosure. It literally was going to the county to be foreclosed on. So we had to pay for the foreclosure stop, pay that lawyer bill, and finally got it done. So we ended up spending to get it. Let's see here. So this is us buying it. Like I said, we offered the 5,000 settlement charges. It costs us $6,415.02 to actually buy it. And then they didn't even get that, less reductions to seller. The seller walked away with not a dime, but they didn't have, property foreclosed on. It didn't, hit the papers and stuff like that. So they were good with that. It just took a burden off. But again, our closing cost was $1,400. It was like $5,300 for the property we ended up paying because it was more than what we thought. On it, yeah, it shows that sort of stuff. So we did that aspect. So when we sold it for $9,995 with our seller actually paying the closing costs. What we ended up doing on it is, let's look at that statement just to see it. So this is where we sold it to the neighbors. So we ended up selling it for $995. They put a deposit of $500 down. Oh, yeah, there's the earnest money. So we ended up getting cash from the buyer was 10.5 basically. So let's look at that. So it's 10,000. My math out, was late in the evening. $10,571.11. It's what we made on the property. So now if I go back and I look at bring this down. If I go back and I look at that aspect, buy side, never keep these numbers straight in my head. We ended up paying $64.15. So we're at 10,571, 64.15.02. Just minus 64.15.02. So we made $4,100 on this property. And that doesn't seem like a lot. It's not a lot, to be honest with you. But what it is it's helping these folks out. It's helping the end buyer out because he wanted it to grow what he had. So it ended up doing a lot of different things, helping a lot of people. It also made us $4,100. $4,100 I can use to do, several mailers. So I share that with you to say, basically, we don't only do it just to make money, but to help people out. And using that word help, we generally are helping people out. Those folks that we bought it from was ecstatic to get rid of it because it was a little bit of a hot mess clearing it out, but our attorneys are good at what they do. So they were able to do that. Questions so far on anything, the little deal I went through. There's some other things that was to the deal, but that was the nuts and bolts of it to get done. Our end buyer, again, was super happy. Our seller was super happy. And I was glad to get, $4,100 in the bank. So everybody won in that deal. And that's just one deal. That month, tell you a little bit about land. So that month, we closed, I think, 4 deals in August, 3 or 4 deals. And that was our cheapest one. I think we had one that was $9,000. We had one that was $11,000. So that's $20,000. And then this is $24,000. And another one probably about $6,000. So you're looking at $30,000+ that we made just in land in August. So this business can really grow. And as you grow your business, you'll get more out of it. So So keep that in mind as you do this business. I don't want to get into comping out the property and all that. I really want to wait to our next meeting because I want to get deep into that and really show you some things and show you some. I want to look at some tough ones and some easy ones and show you what I do if a property doesn't have an address. How do I find that property to know that I'm in the right location? We'll go through all those practical things on our next lesson, and go through every single thing. We'll look at Zillow. We'll look at other things. If you are working this business and you've got a property that you want help, finding out the value of a piece of land, bring it to the meeting next month. We'll look at it together. We'll go through it together and determine what the value should be on that property. And not only what the value should be, but how do I formulate my offers? Do I operate on percentages? Do I operate on dollars? It's a little bit of a mixture of both. So we do both on those. So those are things we want to do in our next session. Questions so far on this session about the things we went over today about, choosing your where you're going to get your leads from, how to obtain those leads, how to clean them, and how to get them mailed out and start responding to those sellers. That's the key things that we talked about today. Other questions so far? Or any areas of improvement I need to do? I appreciate you guys being on this call. It means a lot to me. I hope that it's educational to you to get something out of it. Again, if you are interested in any way of finding out something about your own business or anything like that, definitely you can go to my website, the startinvestingwithmike.com, and you can set up a call with me if you want to, and we can look at what you've got. Other than that, that's all I have tonight. I wanted to keep it with where we ended the last time and where we were. I didn't want to get deep because I want to be able to get really deep and not run out of time next week or next month when we start comping out the properties. Because in this business, the hardest part of this business probably is actually comping out the properties and making sure you got that right. Because if that little aspect of the puzzle is not correct, it's going to throw all your other numbers off. Now, it does happen sometimes. Happens to me, happens to everybody. You got to go renegotiate deals and things like that. The market generally will tell us what the property is really worth. We can look at stuff on the computer and online and all that as much as we want to. But again, thank you. Appreciate the kind comments. Also, if you have any questions, definitely let me know. And I'm in the group. I try to get in the group a little bit on the Facebook site. You can certainly tag me in that, and I'll be glad to answer any question or do anything I can that way too. Again, thank you. I hope you guys have a great rest of the evening and a great rest of the week. And I hope that you will be back in October, second Monday in October, and we'll go further on this. See you guys.